I'm the Canarian, and this is question time. And with me today, we have Inferno Plato, Deputy Prime Minister and Conservative leader. We have Alan Bastard, MP, Leader of the Opposition, Shadow Secretary of State for Education, MP for the Scottish Borders. And we have Crispy Toast, MP for Central Scotland, Leader of the House of Commons, MBBC Deputy Director General. And we have Rex 600, also known as Rex, Shadow Home Secretary and the Honourable Member for North London. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, it's Bastard, not
This
Bastard.
is very high energy. Right, okay. So let's get into the very first question. As you know, I will be calling on each of you individually to begin with. Maximum of a minute response, and then you can debate away for a few minutes. So, first question from Jamie Oliver in Swindon. Crazy Ock has resigned and a by-election is coming up. How important is the by-election and who will win it? Let's go to Alan Bastard first.
Well, obviously, the by-election will be a crucial test of the popularity of the parties at the moment, 2 months into the term. Obviously, we had a very closely fought general election recently, but this will be the first time that people of Britain are able to have their say on how the particular parties are doing. Now, obviously, the opposition will have our candidate, and the process for nominating that candidate is ongoing. I confidently expect that the opposition candidate will be the ones who are ultimately successful in that by-election, because this government does not carry the confidence of the House of Commons, nor does it carry the confidence of the people of this country.
Right then, we'll move on to Rex next. So, Rex, what do you think?
So, in terms of the importance of the by-election, it is obviously highly important, because if you look at the composition of the House at the moment, you have the government on 48 seats, you have the Alliance of the Broad Left, which is, a hypothetical coalition which has happened in the past.
It's
also on
stupid.
48 seats. Thank you. And so, bearing that in mind, the by-election has the potential to take a seat from the government, leaving it on 47, and potentially to give it to the opposition, which would leave the Alliance of the Broad Left coalition on 49. So numerically, it would it would swing the balance of power towards the left wing a little more, making them the largest bloc in the House. So, at least from that regard, it's very important. And I suppose, to answer your question, I've kind of implied it throughout, is that I think that the opposition will win.
Rather conclusive on that one. Now let's move on to Christos. Can you give some light on the issue?
So I actually want to play down the importance of the by-election, because the by-election ultimately is just one vote, and this government, no matter what, is going to have to work with parties outside of the government to pass a budget. And I love how the RSP will continuously berate ministers in a foreign question about how the government doesn't command the majority of the House, and yet they can't form a majority government either. And for that reason, I can't actually say that it's the most important thing that is going to happen, because it's ultimately just one seat. And one seat can always vote. You can have a rebellion in the government. One seat the government loses is not going to end it for us.
Right. Well, now let's move on to the final member of the panel. You're representative, again, like Christos, of the government. So, how important is the by-election and who will win it?
I would say the by-election is very, very important. As Rex said, this seat can help swing the balance either to the left or to the government and the right. So it is crucial that we win this by-election, and I'm confident that we will win this by-election, as we've seen with the recent success of Republicans across the sea, who we've been working extremely close with. Our electioneering strategy is already beginning, and with a candidate on the horizon, I'm confident that we will do well in it.
Well then, now I will open the panel to debate. Feel free to take each other up on what you've said.
If I can just go back on what Christos was saying, the opposition are not banging on about carrying a majority of the House of Commons. We're talking about the confidence of the House of Commons. So it's not the case of one by-election, well, that's just one seat, you're still outnumbered. It's about being able to actually effectively run a government. And that's something this government, in the 2 months that it's been in power, has not been able to do.
Absolutely rubbish. We have been
Rubbish.
running this government. It's been quite clear that we have.
I'm sorry. You've passed how many bills have you passed? Is it one with the input of the
Do we need
opposition?
to talk about what
compared to-
we've done?
compared
Let's
to
not
half a
talk
dozen?
over each other. Let's not talk
Go on
over
then.
each
Go on
other.
then. Go on then.
Alan,
Let's have a list. Let's have a list of your
So
achievements.
this, you see,
then.
this right here is the problem with the opposition, is that they get up and say that they are the number one grouping in the House, and that. But the fact is that the RSP don't know the issues with government. They've never had to deal with an event. They've never had to deal with the intricacy of running with two other parties that you have to work with to agree with, instead of completely taking over another party like they've done in the Greens. The RSP are not fit to govern this country. They may laugh at that, but the fact is that you can't disagree that the Greens don't really exist as a party anymore.
Yes, I can and I will. They have
Where are their economic
distinct
policies?
platform.
Where are their economic policies?
Where-
Go and look at their manifesto.
Let's remember not to talk over each other so that people can hear. what
Okay,
we're
if I might come back on that. So if you want to know what the Greens' economic policy is, go look at their manifesto. It's as simple as that.
I have, and there are no numbers in their manifesto. No numbers, no policies.
Anyway, if I might continue without being interrupted, so I've been told that I don't have the confidence of, we don't have the understanding of what it is to govern, to deal with other parties in coalition. I might remind Christos.
Oh, let's come to Alan after this.
Okay.
Right,
Anyway,
Alan.
I might remind them that as most of us are former communists, or even from other parties, we have.
Oh yes, because that went so well. That went very well.
Christos,
Not only
let's
of working
go
with
to Alan
not
first.
only
Let's
of working with other
Rex, you had your
parties.
say. Let's go to Alan, and then we will go to Christos.
I think that this repeated almost a meme, as it were, from the government, that somehow the RSP and the Green Party are one and the same, comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what it's actually like to work with another party and get on well with each other and agree broadly on the same things, which is why when the government look at the opposition and they see, it's everything the RSP say, it's actually not everything the RSP say. It's two parties that share a broad ideology with differences, but can actively work together in order to try and bring things about. The problem that the government have is they've got a broad range of parties that disagree on very, very major issues. And every time they try and do something, they're at each other's throats. So it's an absolute lie to say that the Greens and the RSP are one and the same. What it is actually working together. Something the right wing in the House of Commons are absolutely unable to do time and time again.
So a couple of things that were very important that need to be highlighted that he just said. He just said that he can work with the Greens. However, a Green RSP coalition would not be big enough to command the confidence of this House as much as this government does. So they would have to work with parties outside of there, and they still are not prepared to do so. The only party that would even consider working with the RSP are A, terrorists, or B, they're the Labour Party. And either way, they do not agree perfectly with you, and this continues to confound the fact that the RSP have no idea how to work with another party besides the Greens, which they have frankly steamrolled, because Inferno Plato is correct. They have no economic policy. I have not seen any Green legislation in front of this House in a long while. And the fact is that we don't see a prominent Green MP besides maybe... I don't even know. Maybe a principal speaker speaking. That's the issue. Is that the RSP have completely flattened the Greens, and they're going to try to do the same thing to Labour.
Let's wrap that up now. You've had a long time, and let's go to Inferno Plato to try and finish up this topic in a nice little manner.
To talk about the RSP and the Greens and the RSP overtaking them, I think this meme originates from the Tory RSP chat, and I'm in full agreement with it. Actually, the Greens have no distinct policies, and the RSP have enforced their will on them. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Obviously, from the RSP perspective, that's a good thing. That's their policies going through. However, what you're seeing in government are four very strong parties taking very tough decisions and compromises, and that is what a government is all about. We've done things in government as We've done things in government.
We can end up there.
Such as recently we've had a
We're
crisis
ending this topic right here, and we're moving on to another
in
subject.
Scotland. Why are we stopping the topic as I'm starting to discuss what we've done?
The next question is from Tim from
Because you haven't
Twitter.
done anything.
Why are we stopping the conversation while I'm listening?
We're
to you?
stopping the conversation because you will have another chance to have this discussion later on.
Ah,
How am I certain we'll have that discussion later on? I reckon we should just get it sorted now.
yeah.
Because the host has told you, say, now shut up and do as you're told.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to a question on the government?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do
Okay,
it.
So this is basically going to be continuing your current discussion, but does the panel feel that the government are doing a good job? This is from Derek in Lewisham, and we'll start with Callum.
Well, yes, I do think the government has been doing a great job. Already, we've seen international cooperation between the US and the UK on sticking against Turkey and their human rights abuses. We've been working with the US already in recent hours on another international venture, which we can talk about later. And we've been working on the budget, which earlier today we got a draft from the Chancellor and the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. That should be coming up very soon. And recently in Scotland, we've had a crisis on our hands where there's been, I believe, pollution in the bay. The government has cracked down on that. We know what's causing it, and we're going to be swiftly taking action to stop further deaths. And those are only a few examples of the government working hard, making tough decisions to benefit the public.
Right then, and we will now take Rex on the question. So do you think that the government are doing a good job, Rex?
Do I think that the government are doing a good job? No, I don't. And I'll give you some reasons why. So, for one, we've seen them be completely ineffectual. We've seen them pass very little legislation. We've seen them delay their budget again and again. You know, they told us it would be in spring. They told us that weeks ago. They told us, wait, no, we can't present our budget because we don't know what numbers to use, which is frankly an inexcusable incompetence. Because in every other case, they've invented a meta issue essentially. We have. In every other case, we've used numbers from past budgets, and they've just decided that's not good enough for them now. Similarly, there's been very little legislation passed because they do not fundamentally they do not command the confidence of the House of Commons. They're a 48-seat coalition. Their only other allies on the right have sworn to oppose them at every turn, and the opposition and Labour are 48, which leaves 52 against them. They cannot pass legislation necessarily. They have not got the confidence or the supply of the Commons, and in that regard, they are completely ineffectual as a government. Thank you.
Right then, shall we then move on to Christos?
All right, thank you. I think that what Rex has said is first false. I'll go to that later, but I do think the government has been doing a good job, and that this is the first government we've had in a while that has actively been pursuing international agreements with other countries, something that we haven't seen in a long time in MHOC. The government is passing legislation on things like transport, which need to be fixed, and the government is in agreement with the budget. Now, regarding Rex and how he said a couple questions ago how the last time the RSP were in government they were communists, it took them ages to pass a budget. So there's no way that he can get up and feasibly say that we are taking too long to pass a budget when the one time they were in government, they took, until the last few days of the term or until the government fell apart to actually pass it. So I don't understand how the RSP get to say one thing but then show the other. It's hypocritical. The government is doing good work.
Right then, we will move on to Alan for the final 1 minute, and then we will move on to the debate.
Thank you. Now, to go back to the original question, do I believe the government are doing a good job? And the answer to that is clearly not, because it's painfully obvious to anybody, even an unbiased observer, that they are not. However, I want to go back to the point that we've got a list of government achievements after 2 months in power. That is, you can count on one hand, and I've been making a note of them as they're being brought up. So far we've got international cooperation. Particularly, the Foreign Secretary here is emphasising working with the United States on Turkey. The Turkey motion was an opposition motion that the government is now attempting to claim credit for actually for going through with, even though it was our idea And they've sat on it for a very, very long time in order to be able to do it. Secondly, to go on to the point about the budget, we were promised a budget in the spring. Now, I don't know what's going on at Downing Street. I don't know if it's to do with global warming, but at the moment we seem to be in the middle of an eternal spring, and we are waiting for a budget that they aren't able to put forward because they keep creating meta issues in order to cling to power. It's a shambles.
Thank you very much. Now we will open up to the debate. I have two intervenes, one from Rex first.
Okay, well, I'm going to start by reiterating those points. The government cannot pass a budget. They do not command the confidence of the House. They cannot pass a budget. When they finally get around to procrastinating it and avoiding having to publish it due to their meta issues, whatever excuses they're currently throwing out, it will fail because the Nationalists have sworn to oppose their budget, and the opposition and Labour will naturally vote against. It will fail, and the sooner that they accept it and resign and do the honourable thing, resign, the better for this country. And as Alan said, they claim the government claims credit for international relations. They claim credit for the Turkey motion, which was submitted by the RSP, the various Turkey motions. They've claimed credit. I'm not sure why they're claiming credit for the omni shambles that was the defence deal with the States. Because it utterly failed and was rejected by the House. Yet another example that the government does not command supply or confidence in the House.
Okay,
that deal was started by Labour. Yeah, sure. But it's laughable. They claim to have done anything or have the capability to do anything for all of these reasons. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then we've got an interview from Callum. Callum, can you come back? Did you want to come back on Alan's point that he made in his speech?
Yeah, it talked about international relations with the US. Yes, I can claim that we've been working well with the US on Turkey. As I said to Albert Dock earlier in MHOC Press subreddit, the only reason why we're not taking action on Turkey beforehand was it completely slipped my mind. I'll be honest with that.
Pathetic.
I mean, what's pathetic about it?
You want to take it? No, you want to take it as a
shouting match. Let's
live.
take a shouting match. Callum, continue.
I can be perfectly frank and honest that it completely slipped my mind. Is that it's an opposition motion. However, there are places in previous terms where the government completely refused to listen to motions. This government has not done that. We've listened to that House and we're taking action with it. We don't have to. This is our initiative, and we are quite right in doing it.
Thank you very much. Now, Christos, you wanted to intervene on Rex, so let's get these intervenes done, shall we?
Right then. So Rex again has refused to respond to the point that I made, that that the communists have not even the RSP/communists had never actually passed a budget in their own government and refused to actually compare themselves to the same standard that the government does. Also, I say when he says that we can never pass a budget, instead of trying to instantly vonk us, put up and let us bring a budget before the House, read it to the House, and see if we can pass it before you try to vonk us. If we don't have the ability to do so, then you should be totally fine with us reading a budget. So I ask the opposition to stop trying to vonk the government, let us read our budget, which is, from what I've heard from the Exchequer, we're getting drafts and we're about to be ready to do so. Let us read our budget, and then you can choose whether or not you want to vonk us instead of vonking a government which frankly has not deserved it, and it has been agreed by the Speaker that we shouldn't be.
And not to mention, a budget failing is no justification for a vote of no confidence, as has been shouted.
Except that we've been told it is.
Except
we will then
the left wing have been shouting that it's not a budget, it's not a justification.
Go ahead,
I'm just going off there.
Hear from Alan now.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back. Obviously, the budget is a separate issue, and I'm sure it's going to come up again. So before we move away from this issue about Turkey, I'd just like to say that the idea that the government is now somehow listening to the will of the House in following through in what they are doing with Turkey is simply not the case. Yes, I'm glad they are working with the United States, and as we've seen by an intervention from the US Secretary of State, This government is working with the United States, but so did the previous government work well with the United States. What we're looking for is a government that will put into action what the democratically elected House of Commons wants them to do. The Turkey motion specifically said about the sale of arms to Turkey. This is something the government has not mentioned in their work over Turkey. So once again, instead of following through on what was asked of them, they are taking it as an abstract idea and twisting it towards their own ends and attempting to claim credit for an opposition idea they're not applying properly.
Hear, hear. Anyway, I believe it's my turn, is it? Anyway, so
Yes, we go to Rex.
okay. So Christos, you've challenged me to come back to your point. If you'd like to perhaps remind me exactly of what it was, so that I can make sure that I satisfy you in my response.
Yeah, can I do that?
Well, I'm saying you can, so.
Yeah, all right. So what I was saying is basically the RSP refuse to compare themselves to the standard that they do to this government. The standard that they have established is that their government, the one time that they've been in government, didn't even pass a budget, and we had to wait forever to get it. Additionally, instead of trying to challenge us with Vonks and get us out of power, let us read our budget so that we can actually have a vote instead of the RSP throwing rhetoric, because the RSP love to send unsubstantiated rhetoric to the British people, and one of those pieces is that we can't pass a budget. I say put up, wait and see if we can pass a budget, because as you've heard from my right honorable friend, the Foreign Secretary, we're nearly ready to put one before you.
Marvellous. Right, now we'll need to wrap this question up. Callum is going to wrap it up, and then we'll...
Hang on a minute. I think I asked him to define his charge so that I could respond to it, but
We need to
it's...
get through to the next two questions. I've given plenty of time for people to respond. Callum, wrap up, please.
The reason that we have been following in with the opposition, all the opposition motions, recommendations, is because we quite simply don't believe that those will get the results which are desired. If we did follow them, we would be called the official opposition under the RSP, but we're not. What we're going to do is we're going to talk with them first before we condemn them and punish them. Surely it makes sense to make any changes to actually talk to the other country to see where we can, I don't know, get our demands before we start condemning them, banning arms sales, stripping them from our bases. We've got to talk rather than act in an aggressive manner.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the next question. So, this is from Tim in Timpton. Is either House of Lords reform a step in the right direction or an attack on an effective system? Let's go to Christos first.
All right. So as one of the two lords or former sitting lords here, I have to say that the House of Lords is a very interesting issue, and I think that before the obstructionists, I would not have been in favor of any form of Lords reform. Not because they're undemocratic, not because the RSP would love to get up and say, we've shown you, victory for us. That's not because of it. It's because, frankly, the RSP really love slowing down a chamber. The House of Lords works in that it amends, and I understand that it requires some systems like standing orders for government legislation and bills passed by the House of Commons and changing the community reform. However, we shouldn't abolish it. But now that we're being faced with a group of people who want to backlog the House 30 years from what I've heard, there's no other way to fix it but to pass this Parliament bill, and that's frankly them hijacking the democratic processes of the United Kingdom. It's absolutely awful that they have managed to say that they're never going to sit in the Lords and then magically start sitting in the Lords now.
Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to Rex. And
I hate Giant so much and why.
Okay, so let's start by let's dispel this fiction of the House of Lords. There's nothing wrong with the House of Lords, shall we? Anyway, so yeah. Frankly, a house that can for so long block... yes, it's a meme, okay? A house that can block government legislation for so long, and I'm going to say government legislation, I don't care if it's a right-wing government or a left-wing government or what, A house that can block government legislation for months at a time, literally months, is fundamentally flawed, The people of this country have a democratic will. They have a democratic will to elect a government that represents them and have that government do what they elected them to do, you know, and the House that is completely unelected, that is able to stop bills from passing for months at a time, you know, is fundamentally broken, and so. It's laughable to suggest that even before the obstructionists started that reform wasn't needed, and it's just the case that now, yeah, sure, it's just the case that now that the obstructionists have shown people what the issue is with the Lords. It's been demonstrated that there is an issue, and now people are starting to come round to it.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to go over to Inferno Plato, and he will give us a response.
There is nothing wrong with the House of Lords. I'm a Tory. I think that should be obvious. When Rectrek says the Lords can block bills forever or for months at a time, that is simply not the case. The longest a bill has been held back in a single reading or through a single passage through the Lords has been about, a week. That was with stringent filibustering, and it just simply doesn't work. What's holding back bills because of the only things which are causing such a hassle. Those are the things which are causing a hassle on this huge meta issue. Solve that, and we solve much of the delay in the Lords. I mean, that is unless the obstructionists stop their obstructing in the Lords, which is causing a backlog and has put the Lord Speakership under a lot of strain.
Right, thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to Alan, and then we've got an intervention.
Thank you very much. I'd like to focus on the point that Christos so ably made earlier, the idea that he was perfectly fine with the House of Lords before the obstructionists came in, and now he suddenly realised that the House of Lords needs reform. Well, the simple fact is the entire purpose of the obstructionist Lord grouping was to show the other parties what it is like to have your legislation constantly torn apart by a group who refuse to be reasoned with and who should have no say on the matter. And so the fact that suddenly now many people are coming around to what is fundamentally obvious to every single other country on the planet, that you shouldn't have an unelected body manipulating legislation that's been passed by a democratically elected body, just goes to show the correctness of the obstructionists and the ultimate futility of attempting to democratically pass legislation when you've got a second chamber that's willing to overrule that with no authority themselves. So to be perfectly honest, I'm glad that the Parliament bill is being voted on at the moment. I look forward to it passing, and I look forward to a severely curtailed House of Lords, and so do the majority of people in this country.
Marvellous, thank you very much. Now we have an intervention immediately from Christos. So Christos, go ahead.
Yeah, so the issue that they just said is that they're twisting my words, in that I said that without the obstructionists, the House of Lords would be perfectly all right, and that's true. The House of Lords exists to moderate the legislation that comes from the other house. Ultimately, it can't kill the legislation, it can merely make the Commons think about it and vote on it again, which it's doing a great job at doing. Just because the House doesn't agree with you doesn't mean you should abolish it. Just like how we shouldn't abolish the other political parties who don't agree with us. It's the same idea. Additionally, the House of Lords is based off of, in a very weird way, but still is based off of election results.
Nonsense.
It is. It's I can read you out the equation. Anyway,
it's very loose.
The RSP would love to say that, because they ultimately resigned all their old communist lordships and then don't have as many lordships as more fortunate parties like the Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives, or even Labour. But the fact is that the House of Lords without the obstructionists works fine.
I would also agree with Christos when he says that the Lords do not have the power to kill bills. We simply do not. We only have the power to make the Commons think again. And when you're saying that the Lords manipulate bills, turn them into their favour, that again is not the case. Any amendment which passes must be approved by the House of Commons. And that stands no matter how much you want to curtail the Lords. I'm not sure how much you want to curtail them.
Yeah, just let me slip in finally. Most of the bills in the Lords that have been amended are actually not stuck in the Lords at the moment. They're stuck in the Commons committees, which we just voted to replace. It's a very common misconception that that's the Lords' fault, but the Lords are merely amending. They're not actually making them get stuck in Commons committees.
Okay, so I suppose I'll.
I'd quickly just like to say that Callum has to go now, so if everyone could understand that, yeah, Callum's now gone, so we're going to continue, and we're going to let Big Trev come in to finish off the rest of the show in his place. So Big Trev, just say hello.
Hello.
Right, marvellous. We're going to get your opinion on the question, and Big Trev is a Labour member, not a Tory member, just to be clear. So, what do you think, Big Trev? Do you think that the Lords reform is a step in the right direction or an attack on effective system?
Well, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. The Lords is clearing the current political system.
Right, marvellous. Okay, we will now actually going to have to move on to the final question. The final question. I'm sorry, Alan. I'm sorry. We've got to get through. We've only got 7 minutes left. We're going to go on to the final question, which is from Ron in Texas, which I assume is a small town in the north of England.
Correct.
And it is: do you all believe that the Republic of Ireland is a fascist state? So let's go first to Big Trev. Go on, you give us your opinion.
Well, I don't really think that the accusations made by the Dutch or the European Union aren't exactly the best made in the world, and I think that, yeah, sure, one party might dominate because they've got free reign, but does not mean it's a fascist state. Other parties can quite easily get involved, they're just not bothering.
Right, okay, that was short and sweet. Let's go to Alan, because unfortunately Alan didn't get to say what he wanted to say in the last question, so Alan, go ahead.
Well, I think is the Republic of Ireland a fascist state is kind of, it is obviously a big issue. I think it's not the issue that's brought this to the majority of people's minds. Is the Irish Republic worthy of being considered part of the community of nations to which we all consider ourselves a part of, if I'll phrase it that way so as not to break kayfabe. So the idea that, so whether they're a fascist state or not, to be honest, I don't know, because defining a fascist state is quite difficult. Do I think they deserve to be part of the model European Union? Do I think they deserve to be part of the model United Nations? Definitely not.
Okay, is that, let's just explain that bit. Do you think that's because of their current political situation, or is it another reason?
It isn't because of their current political situation. I mean, after all, the United Kingdom has a current government who I disagree with quite virulently, but I still think they should be part of it. I think it's very simply the fact that the Republic of Ireland, the political climate they have there is quite small, and now utterly dominated by a certain group that perhaps don't necessarily represent the majority of people in the Republic of Ireland as a whole. And so therefore, I think attempting to give this government the legitimacy of a place at the model United Nations or the model European Union, I think is a step in the wrong direction.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to have Christos's word on the question, and I'll just remind you that the question is: do you all believe that the Republic of Ireland is a fascist state? However, feel free to expand onto the issues related to it, like Alan has.
Is it a fascist state? Again, the definition of a fascist state is very hard to get at. So I don't know, honestly, but the fact is that I don't think that they should be in the model world, because they haven't really reached all of the requirements, and they are led by basically one group of people, and it's not the right idea to be sending to them that if they get an active government of one party, which is maybe edging towards a fascist state, they should be permitted into the model world. That's a load of bollocks, and I don't think they're going to be let into the model European Parliament. But I think what Slug was doing by letting them into the model world again was saying that they exist so that they can maybe apply for model European Union membership, but the two are separate. They're not the same thing.
Christos, have we lost you? Are you still here?
No, I just finished.
It's just a very sudden finish. Right, okay then, we will move on to Rex. Rex, you've got an opinion on the situation, I understand.
Oh, well, I think I do. So yeah, essentially, my position is that I think it's neither here nor there whether the Republic of Ireland is a fascist state or not. You know, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that, you know, in wanting to become part of our community of nations, of the United Nations, and also of the MEU, of the modern EU, you know, that has certain requirements, you know. So one of those is that they respect basic human rights, you know, such as the right to worship, which is one we've seen particularly under attack in recent times, with particularly stringent restrictions on the worship of Islam in the Republic of Ireland. And I think for those reasons, you know, maybe they're not a fascist state, maybe they are. Who cares? You know, it's neither here nor there. What the big issue is that, you know, they don't belong in the model UN because they don't appreciate and they don't respect the principles, the founding principles of the United Nations.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Now, let's move on to the big debate about this issue. Anybody feel free to come in on the first point? If
what
you
is
would
the
like
first
to
point?
expand
Sorry.
it, you could concern the fact that the Netherlands is very much seems to be opposed to Ireland rejoining our community, so to speak. Would any of you want to?
Oh yeah, I'll hop in here actually.
Go on, Christos.
Yeah, so Dutch people, stop getting your underwear in a twist. They love to stretch their power and get up and say that they shouldn't be permitted in, but ultimately the power rests in Purple Slug to decide the requirements to enter the model world. Again, they do have some control through the way that the model European Parliament is set up, and vote to allow the House, the Irish Republic into that, which they're totally permitted to do so. But they can't get mad at Purple Slug for acting in his duty, which, as Secretary General of the United Nations, is to choose who joins our community. So they need to stop saying that, because there's no point. They're not supposed to be recognizing the entry of the Republic of Ireland. That's never been done. They shouldn't have to. That shouldn't have to happen. They shouldn't be worried about it, and they shouldn't be mad about it.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Big Trev, give us a second. You can come in after the first. And just a reminder to everyone, we will make sure that we are not causing any echoes.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, with regard to the case of the Republic of Ireland and the issues that are going on there at the moment, I imagine there will be repercussions with regards to the legislation that's being passed, particularly with regard to the freedom to worship, and particularly with regard to the abortion laws that are being passed, because in all honesty, I don't believe they'll be allowed by European law, particularly the freedom of movement. But I think, in all honesty, this isn't really going to be whether they'll be allowed to join the model European Union or not. I think is not going to be a particularly large issue, because I thoroughly look forward to the United Kingdom removing itself from the model European Union. So it won't really be an issue, and that, I imagine, for the majority of people, by the time the Republic of Ireland is even able to apply for full membership, we will be well and truly clear of that neoliberal ramp that crushes the worker and the proletariat, unfortunately.
Right, thank you very much. Let's go to Big Trev. Big Trev seems to be having some mic issues right now.
Yeah, I'm here. I think the Netherlands are, quite frankly, getting into a fucking lot of nothing. I think, obviously, Model Ireland's position in the United Nations isn't exactly the best decision in the world, but Secretary General made his decision, and as a member of the Model United Nations, the Netherlands should simply be going on acting like fascists themselves in making such comments.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to add anything to this issue, or we'll go to one last quick fire question and then we'll end this episode? No, we'll go to the quick fire question. This is a little bit of a fun question that some of you may not be able to answer. So this is from Val2, so you can already get an idea of what kind of question this is.
Child murderer.
Communicating from a bunker in an undisclosed location in Albania, and he wants to know which is everyone's favorite punk band.
Colin?
So does anybody have any favorite post-punk bands, or is Val2 just a lonely man in a bunker?
Val2 is a lonely man and my country's sworn enemy.
Lol. Shall we go with Shaun and the Baby Murderers?
Okay. Marvelous. Shaun and the Baby Murderers. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up this episode now. Thank you all of you for coming.
Tell your mothers you love them tomorrow.
Yeah. Remember everybody to tune in next week, where we will be doing something just as interesting as this week. Have fun. Bye.